The easiest thing in the world is to just blame somebody else and say, if those people, those multinational corporations or those bureaucrats or those politicians, or, those people, if they would just get their act together, everything would be fine. And the fact is that there's just us. And those people are going to do what they're going to do. Most of us spend our time worrying about people that we don't have any control over. We've got a lot of control over the one that looks at us in the mirror. And if we could get that one going in the right direction, and enough of them going in the right direction, then all they, them, and those people, they'd have to fall in line too. All great healing and change comes from the bottom up, not the top down.
As a responsible person with growing concerns for your privacy and personal liberty, you want to know where we're headed and what you can do about it. We ask the experts what you need to do to take prudent and responsible action to safeguard your family's wealth and well-being, and what basic first steps will help you to be aware and prepared. ReluctantPreppers.com.
You've got your home preparation. You've got your home-centric. Ultimately, a lot of self-reliance is about coming home. It really is. The more time you spend away from home, the more dependent you become on things outside the home and beyond your control. And I'm not a hermit. I'm not espousing that, but I would say that we need to look at a home-centric living situation, which includes entertainment, recreation. I mean, the things that I'm describing, people quickly say, well, how do you have time for all this stuff? Well, we don't have a TV. We don't go to the movies. This is our recreation life. The fact is, you can't have it all. You can't. You can't have the kids in every soccer game and every little league, this and that and the other, and you can't be dependent on Netflix for your entertainment, and you can't depend on pizza delivery 2 nights a week, and become resilient to the to the fragility of our culture. It can't be done. So you have to make choices, and you have to decide to put time, energy, and emphasis, and pretty soon you wake up and you say, well, this is fun. Growing a tomato is cool, and the kids, marvel at, we put these seeds in the ground, and look, as the juice gushes down their elbows, and they, who wants to eat a cardboard tomato out of the supermarket that's been jiggling up 1,500 miles in the back of a tractor trailer?
Now, in addition to the individual family's self-reliance, you evidence through your outreach of your farm both to education but also to produce food for others. So what options should they consider to reach out and network and connect with others who are producing food in their nearby area, in their nearby community?
Yeah, well, every community, every area now, especially with what I call the integrity food tsunami, is surrounded by really high-quality producers of everything from produce to nuts to fruits to meats and poultry and dairy, and whether it's a herd share, a cow. I mean, we get our milk from a farmer that does raw milk herd shares, and so we get our milk every week, and we're on a delivery route. So, we don't have to go to the supermarket to get all that stuff. It comes to us. We buy, our apple juice from an orchard, 100 gallons at a time, and store it. So, you simply develop relationships with this network of integrity food producers in your area, and again, you'll have to put some time and attention on it. That means we don't watch a movie tonight. Instead we go visit, Farmer John, and you decide to become a participant in this instead of a spectator, and you decide to become proactive instead of a victim. And as you do that, you develop this amazing community of support and help in the area, and guess what? You find people that are gifted at being able to do things. The next thing you know, you're running into somebody that knows, how to set up a little steam engine, and you can make your own electricity, whatever, with a generator. I mean, there are really, really cool, smart people all around that know how to, as we say around here, that know how to do stuff. And as you start down this path of this journey of discovery and seeking, people who know how to do stuff will come your way. It was interesting. I just did a conference in Alabama, and half the audience had a small farm, and half the audience didn't, and wanted to have a little bit of acreage, at least 2 or 3 acres where they could grow most of their own food and things. And so, I asked them, I said, how many of you, there were 300 people, how many of you currently, subscribe to Acres USA magazine? And 2 hands went up. How many of you have been to your state's sustainable agriculture, convention? Not a single hand went up. And I was amazed. I said, look, if you want to actually do this, you've got to put yourself in the place where the cutting edge thinking is. And it's not going to come just out of the cosmos somewhere, You're not going to wake up at 2 in the morning and suddenly know how to do stuff. You have to put yourself in the place where it's happening. And so, I encourage people to circulate in these networks, from Weston A. Price Foundation to sustainable farming groups to permaculture. All of these networks have that common thread of going right now, going a path less traveled by in our country. Believe me, that's going to make all the difference. We don't need a government program. We don't need a law. We don't need anything. If nobody went and bought food at McDonald's tomorrow, they would be on their knees within 2 days.
That's one of the things that you mentioned earlier as far as people making what may seem like hard choices, but it's part of stepping up and taking that responsible, active role, that engaged role in your own life, the vital processes of your own life. A lot of our topics on our channel have been about that, is that we've been conditioned over and over through the years and through the decades to just sit back and, as you mentioned, take a spectator role or a consumer role. We've had guests on talking about the fragility that we back into when we capitulate and just become that recipient, that passive spectator or consumer. And yet a lot of people cringe at the thought of, do I really have to get my hands all that dirty? Do I really have to do this myself? There are not enough hours in the day, and it's really a mindset shift, is what I'm hearing from you, is that you can take some small steps. You can through taking specific actions to say, in this one area I will try this one thing, and you'll see, well, look at that, I now have the pride and the satisfaction, and my children and my family do, of having less uncertainty, more confidence, more familiarity with that, and we're less vulnerable in that area. And along the way, meeting other people, you can network with those so that you don't have to do it all yourself. You don't have to gain all the skill sets and everything, but by networking with others who are already doing those things in your local area, you can increase the supportability of your family. But there is really that fundamental emotional hurdle to get through, to recognize that we really have been conditioned to take a passive spectator / consumer approach to life. And how do we get out of that? It sounds like taking some specific concrete steps is a way to do that.
Yeah, well, and I have one of my good friends that I do speak with, Darren Dougherty, who has started the kind of the Regrarians in Australia, and he makes the point that when we talk about climate change, the first thing we need to work with is the climate of the mind. the hardest climate to change is the climate of the mind. And if we change the climate of the mind, then it has ramifications for every other kind of climate, you know. But people want to you know, to see their surrounding climate change to something better without changing their own internal climate of the mind. I think it's a powerful metaphor for, you know, for how we need to, you know, view things. And it's as simple as asking a guy that's doing a business plan, well, what's this going to do to the earthworms in your community? You know, it's as simple as that, to, you know, to complex things, you know, how to site a house, or what materials we're going to use. Is it going to be earth sheltered? You know, all those kinds of things.
Now, you mentioned also on your excerpt of the article that you, or the talk that you give on the self-contained home, people can do rooftop honeybees. What is that, for goodness sakes?
Oh, well, I mean, one of the most underutilized places on Earth is the roof of our houses, the roof of our schools, the roof of our buildings. I mean, I just flew back from Huntsville, Alabama here this weekend, and as I was coming down over, went Huntsville to Chicago to Charlottesville. I mean, that's where you get here. You know, it's not a straight line. And as I came down there, I mean, I just saw these, you know, literally, you know, acres and acres and acres, square miles of these, you know, warehouse flat roofs, and there is a tremendous amount of growing area on those. I did a conference recently with a professor at another university, and he'd just come back from China, and he had pictures of a brand new city in China, a city of 250,000 people. They, I mean, it was China, right? So they just went in, and officials, whoever, you know, and said, we need a new city right here. But they had one stipulation to the builders. They said, we need to be able to grow as much food on this land as it's growing now as farmland, even when it has 250,000 people living on it. And so they built, of course, it was China after all, so every you know, apartment is 5 stories high, flat roof, you know, identical. It is China, all right. But from the aerial picture, from the air, you couldn't even see that it was a city. And all the roofs were living roofs, and they had bees and vegetables and stuff growing on them, and the water that ran off the roof went into a cistern, and then it was pumped back up on the roof, so there was no stormwater drainage. I mean, think about the savings in cost, just cost, in building a completely cyclical city like that, you know, and the cucumber vines cascade down over, and because of all the green vegetation and its transpiration, it sucks the heat in the summer out of the buildings, and so now there's no air conditioning. You don't have to pay for any air conditioning because the foliage cools down, so it's like you're in a forest. It makes better oxygen, so the air quality is better. Now people are breathing better, have more energy because the oxygen's higher quality, and they produce their own food, and they don't have water drainage issues. It's completely self-reliant, and in the winter, the heat bill is way less because the R factor, when you've got, you know, 12 inches of perlite and soil on top of a roof, the R factor goes up to, like, you know, 100. So now you're in a nice blanket in the wintertime. Now it doesn't take much energy to heat it. We don't need more research. We know how to do these things. It's not a matter of you know, what to do. It's simply a matter of jumping in with what we know and doing it.
And one area in your talk that you haven't focused on here is about the cost of all this. You said, what if our homes produce more than they cost? From an individual homeowner or family's perspective, what are some of the aspects? Now, you mentioned cutting your water usage by half, for example, that sort of thing. That's definitely a direct savings to the pocketbook. And some of these other things of having your larder well stocked, certainly going to reduce when you go shopping in your own larder rather than going off to Costco. Are there any other aspects of the financial potential of the individual home that you want to discuss?
Oh, well, I mean, I talked about the passive solar heat. So now you're producing solar, you're producing food, and you know, what you'll find very quickly is that you can very easily produce more than your family can eat if you have any size at all, and you manage it well to a very small solarium. And you stack in there, you use hanging things, and very quickly you start producing more than you can eat. Well, now you have something to sell. Or, I mentioned 2 chickens. If you have 10 chickens instead of 2, now suddenly you have eggs to sell to 2 neighbors. Or rabbits. Rabbits are a great urban kind of thing. And if you have a little bit of acreage at all, you can raise some pastured chickens. I mean, I know people, for example, an elderly couple in Wisconsin had a 1/4-acre backyard. They started raising pastured poultry in a couple of portable shelters, and suddenly started selling them. They profited $1,000 a year from their little 1/4-acre backyard, selling some pastured broilers to the neighbors. And then if you have all that going on, guess what? Your house becomes a magnet for children. Children want to come over. I mean, so then you can sell after-school babysitting services for all the children that want to come and participate with the animals and the gardening, because it's all so cool and interesting. Bees on the roof. Bees go all over the community. Now you've got honey that you can use, honey to sell. Are you with me?
Yeah, and you mentioned also that, honestly, we have been so brainwashed out of a lot of this common sense wisdom that if people want to say they can't go to the typical places they would go, all the building stores and everything, are tell them how to make these houses that are, the cracker box houses that have no sustainability to go with them. But if they want to learn about more of these techniques that you're describing and how they can slow down and become a little bit more connected with where their food and their water and energy is coming from, where's some very first steps that they can take to get connected with some better information?
Well, probably one would be just to subscribe to Mother Earth News. It's got tons of good, very readable magazine, very, homestead, self-reliance oriented. Another one certainly would be the Small Stock Journal. Oh, shoot, I can't think of the name of it right now. But I think it's out of Missouri. I probably have a couple of issues down here on by the desk. But anyway, these kinds of things. I mean, Acres USA has lots of this kind of stuff. But I mean, when you start looking at the self-reliant literature out there, I mean, anything with permaculture, the permaculture activists, get on the Permies website and see the kind of stuff with energy and little biogas generators. I saw one working at the Puyallup, Washington Mother Earth Fair. The guy had a 3-horsepower biogas operated generator going on, and so there's a whole network of this stuff going on, and I just, again, if the climate of your mind is embracive of something different than Hollywood celebrity culture, you'd be surprised how much is out there. Lots.
Were you thinking of Countryside and Small Stock Journal?
Countryside and Small Stock Journal, yes, that's the magazine. Countryside and Small Stock Journal. That's a great way. That's a reader written. It's not slick like Mother Earth News, but it's a reader written. But lots of good, helpful, all sorts of good, helpful tidbits in there. And of course, the advertisers and the classified ads. There's your network, and use them.
As far as connecting with local producers, best thoughts you have guiding people on how to connect with their local producers?
Well, yes. I mean, farmers market is a place to start, but beyond that, there's every state has a sustainable agriculture organization. In Ohio, it's Ohio Ecological Food and Farming Association, and in the Carolinas, it's the Carolina Stewardship Association. Anyway, all of them have them. Well, hook up with those. Find out where they are. I mean, goodness, get in with your local Weston A. Price Foundation chapter. Weston A. Price Foundation, and that'll get you your culinary expertise. And they often promote and have a whole list of farmers. In fact, Weston A. Price Foundation has a Smart Shopper guide that you can get that's nationwide for good sources for food sources that are nutrient dense and not chemical. So all of this, look, movement creates movement. I mean, I don't know and couldn't give, even if I did know, all of the different things that are out there. But what you have to do is take a step, and once you take a step, that movement creates more understanding, and you can see where to take your next step, and then you see where to take your next step, and before you know it, you're halfway down the journey. But the hardest step is the very first one. It's do I actually think about making tomato juice when instead I could go on an excursion somewhere, on a Caribbean cruise. Well, why don't we put that Caribbean cruise off until after everything is harvested seasonally and the larder's full? Then we can do that. Actually putting attention on thinking, where am I, and what is my participatory responsibility to this ecological nest that I live in and I'm dependent on. That shows a level of maturity, a level of care and maturity. It's not just putting in an LED light, driving a Prius, and sending a check to Nature Conservancy. It's actually and then taking the grandkids to Happy Meals. No, it's really getting the whole network of interrelatedness.
Well, Joel, before we let you go, is there any one last thought you want to leave with our listeners, and also to let them know how they can find more about your work?
Well, they can find more about us through our website, polyfacefarms.com. If you just put in, by the time you get to the end of Polyface, Polyface, the rest will pop. And you can see there, where I'll be speaking. You can see educational things, seminars that we do. I've written several books that might be of interest and help, especially for people that actually have enough acreage to, raise a little bit of stock or animals. So that's that source. The only other thing that I would say is that the easiest thing in the world is to just blame somebody else and say, if those people, those multinational corporations or those bureaucrats or those politicians or, those people, if they would just get their act together, everything would be fine. And the fact is that there's just us. And those people are going to do what they're going to do. Most of us spend our time worrying about people that we don't have any control over. We've got a lot of control over the one that looks at us in the mirror. And if we could get that one going in the right direction, and enough of them going in the right direction, then all they, them, and those people, they'd have to fall in line too. All great healing and change comes from the bottom up, not the top down.
Well, Joel, you've given us a lot of food for thought, a lot of first steps that people can take, and as you mentioned taking one step can lead to meeting other people, can lead to learning more, can lead to being able to see what the next steps might be. So people should take heart, not be discouraged, and just go ahead and plunge in and take that first step and see where that leads them. And it'll lead their family to a place of more self-reliance, more resilience. And we thank you for representing your family's farm, Polyface Farm here, and sharing your wit and wisdom with us. And our guests will have a link to your site there so they can learn more about that and to start taking action on some of those steps that you've guided us to. So thank you so much, Joel.
Absolutely super. Thank you very much.
After I order gold or silver, how can I trust I'm going to get it? And I don't want everybody to know that I'm ordering gold and silver.
Oh, it's okay. It's fully insured. It's trackable, and you have to sign for it, so nobody else is going to get it but you. and it comes discreetly packaged. If you order a small amount, like maybe gold, it'll probably come in a box that looks something like this.
Okay.
And if you order a large amount, maybe like silver, it'll come in a box that looks something like this.
Wow.
But it doesn't say gold or silver on there. It might say something industrial or something else like that, but nobody's gonna know what you ordered.
Oh, that's great to know.
Your first ounce of silver is at spot price, and you get free shipping on any order over $99 at sdbullion.com/RP. Hey, Reluctant Preppers. If you haven't heard, we've already started our monthly 1-ounce U.S. Silver Eagle thank you gift to one active Patreon subscriber each month, signed by your host, Dunagun Kaiser, and you don't want to miss out on that. Reluctant Preppers provides educational awareness and commentary only. Opinions expressed do not constitute personalized financial advice. Viewers are encouraged to do their own research and seek qualified personal financial consultation before making investment decisions.
Please help us grow by subscribing today at patreon.com/reluctantpreppers.